All right, so this is AMI day 4. We are trying to show that f is continuous. So with a piecewise function, remember that this is where any issue would happen, and that's the place they're wanting us to show it's continuous at. So what we need to do is we need to check and see what the limit as x approaches 0 from the left is, and what the limit as x approaches 0 from the right is, and plug in both of those. So as we are approaching 0 from the left, that means we want values smaller than x. So that would be this top one. So we're going to plug in 0 into that. So sine of 0 is 0. So that would just give us 1. And then if we do this from the right, that's values bigger. So that means we would use this bottom part right here. So we'd plug in 0, and anything to the 0 is 1. And then if we compare that to f of 0 is what actually has the equal sign. So that is this top part right here. So f of 0, I don't know why I rewrote that, sorry, is 1. So since the limit as x approaches 0 from the left of f of x is equal to the limit as x approaches 0 from the right of f of x is equal to f of 0, f is continuous at x equals 0. Now for part B, we want to find f prime of x first. So f prime of x is literally just going to be taking derivatives. So the derivative of 1 is 0. The derivative of -2 sine is -2 cosine x. And that is going to be for values that are less than 0, because it specifies here it's not equal to. For the second part, we'll do chain rule. So the derivative of e is itself. Then we multiply by the derivative of the exponent. And so that's for values greater than 0. So we want to find, where does f prime of x equal -3? So now, first of all, we need to think through, like, there's two options here. It could either be the cosine option or the e option. Now our issue, though, let's think over here. Cosine by itself has a range of -1 to 1. So that would mean -2 cosine is going to have a range of -2 to 2, which means it will never equal -3. So we can ignore that cosine part and just focus on this part, setting it equal to -3. So we'll divide by -4. To get rid of e, we take the natural log of both sides. So that's going to give us -4x equals natural log of 3 over 4. Then we'll divide by -4. And so that's going to mean you get ln of 3 over 4 over -4 for your x value. Now for part C, we want to find the average value of the function from -1 to 1. So average value in general is the 1 over b minus a integral from a to b of f of x dx. So the issue here is we want the average value from -1 to 1, and we have a domain split at 0. So when we start setting this average value up, we'll do, let me give myself some space here. We are going to do 1 over 1 minus -1. But we're going to have to split this into two integrals, where we go from -1 to 0 for this first part, 1 minus 2 sine of x. And then where we go from 0 to 1 of this next part. So unfortunately, that is the easiest part of this. Now we get to actually integrate these and plug things in. So we've got this 1/2 out front that we're going to keep. So the antiderivative of 1 is x. Just to remind myself here, we go sine, cosine, negative cosine, sine. So if we're at negative sine, that means when we integrate, we're going to end up at cosine. So plus 2 cosine of x. And that is evaluated from -1 to 0. Now we just did a derivative of e to the -4x. The derivative of e to the -4x puts a -4 out front. So that means the integral is going to put a negative 1/4 out front, and we'll evaluate that from 0 to 1. Okay, so remember whenever we do these integrals, you plug in the top first and the bottom second. So first thing we plug in 0, that gives us 0, and then cosine of 0 is 1, so that's going to give us 2. Minus, then we plug in negative 1, and then 2 cosine of negative 1. Now this is not a calculator question, so that is just how it's left, because I don't know what cosine of negative 1 is. So then we come over to this next one, and we are going to get minus 1/4. We'll plug in 1 e to the negative 4. Then minus negative is going to make it plus 1/4 e to the 0. So then we've got some simplification we got to do. This negative will distribute in, so that's going to make this positive and that negative. So we end up with 2 plus 1 is 3, and then e to the 0 is 1, so that's going to mean we have plus 1/4. So 3 is the same thing as 12/4. So we have 12/4 plus 1/4, so that's going to give us 13/4. And then we've got this 2 cosine of negative 1 that we can't evaluate, and then minus 1/4 e to the 4. Then technically we can distribute that 1/2 in, so that's going to give us 13/8 plus cosine of negative 1 minus 1/8 e to the 4. And then that should be our average value of that function. All right, so that is days 1 through 4 of AMI completed. So make sure that you look at the classwork section to see what days of AMI you need to do for the week after spring break. Hope you guys are doing well.